Hello, I am Madeline James, and in light of making the transition over to planning on self-publishing, my debut coming out next year, and becoming a full-time writer and content creator, I decided to do a Q&A, and I gathered up some wonderful questions from the community, and I'm excited to answer them. Also, may I just say, look at my earrings, they're books. Isn't that cute? I got them at a pen convention, which was very fun. But okay, I have a list of questions and I've separated them into categories. So we're going to have questions about the full-time lifestyle, questions about publishing, questions about like AuthorTube and YouTube, and then some like more general writing type questions. And I'm excited to answer these. I do want to again give the disclaimer that like, I think the best that we can do here on YouTube and AuthorTube is just share what we're going through and doing and learning and hoping that helps other people. I am not an expert at anything, right? Like I'm not an editor. I haven't ever actually published a book before. Like I've done tons of research, but I'm not an expert on anything. So all of my answers to these questions are going to just be based off my current experience and my thoughts, and don't take any of it as expert advice, right? Because I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just doing stuff, right? Let's get into the questions. Okay, so we're starting with the questions about my full-time lifestyle. So the first question is, since you decided to change to being a full-time writer and world builder, what have you enjoyed the most and what has been a challenge so far? So I think the biggest challenge has been the fact, the realization of the fact that I don't actually have unlimited time. I still have time restrictions, and you know, I'm not writing 8 hours a day, right? I have all the YouTube and the Patreon stuff to manage as well, which is how I'm actually making money to fund the future publishing, right? But I definitely expected to have way more time, and I don't know, that's been the hardest part, is just going to be figuring out exactly how much time I have, and then there's still sacrifices, might not be the right word, but like you still have to prioritize what you're going to do. You won't have time to do everything and all the things you want to do at the pace that you necessarily want to do them. So there's still that that difficult prioritization of like, okay, you're still gonna have to not do some things unless you want to work like 80 plus hours a week, which I've done some weeks. But that's definitely the hardest part. And I think the part that I enjoy the most is the knowledge that I'm doing this, which that doesn't explain it well, but like I know the books that I'm writing are gonna come out, right? Like I am actively planning on making it happen. I know my books are gonna come out. When I think ahead at books, like I know they're gonna come out. Like I have control over my future and the things that I'm gonna do and the way I'm gonna work on projects, which is a big difference from when I was, you know, had a lot less time, was a lot more at the whims of what was going on in my life at the time. Like if work was a lot more stressful, then my writing time would kind of go away because I'd need to recover from that. If there was a lot going on with the kids, I would lose a lot of my writing time. Like if we had a lot of vacations, I would lose a lot of my writing time. If we want to do a project at the house, like I can know that I'm going to have time to work on things consistently and continue making progress on things both throughout the year, but also going forward, right? Like, while I still have to figure out exactly the right timelines, which I do have a video that I think is going to come out before this one, probably on like figuring out those timelines. But I know that every book I plan, unless I decide otherwise, is going to come out. People are going to see it. I get to get covers for it, right? Like, versus when I was querying and going for trad, it's like every book I wrote, like I was just planning out all these little standalone books that I would query, and that maybe it would take 10 books to get a publishing deal. And like, I wouldn't know when that was going to happen. And even once you get a publishing deal and you start publishing in trad, you don't know if your future books are going to get picked up, right? So like, you never know until your book is like out, if it's actually going to be out there. And I think that's like the best part of this is like, this sounds so cliche, but I feel like I have control over my destiny. Which is really nice and very exciting, and it's very motivating to know that I'm actually going to get to go forward with these series. I'm actually going to get to finish them, right? And which, if you're going trad and you're querying, like, it doesn't really make sense to write books after book one, because if you never sell book one, you're just wasting the time with the other books when you could be writing other books you can query. You can't query books 2 and 3, etc. So that's just been very, very nice. And I've been enjoying it. I've been enjoying having control over what I'm doing and just being able to be so mentally immersed in my writing, because that's a huge thing for me with being like ADHD, is that like hyperfixation. It is very much the fuel to me accomplishing things. And right now it's like, yes, I'm like kind of switching between things, but like I can keep that energy that I have on this all the time without using it up at work every day and then coming home and being like, raw, you know? It's been great. That was a bit of a lengthy question, but it was a bigger question, right? So question 2, do you have any tips for someone who hopes to move into full-time writing and editing while currently lacking the confidence and self-belief that they can succeed, and therefore leading them to not actually take the steps required to get there? Thank you. I think the biggest advice that I would give would just be to envision smaller milestones, right? Because obviously going full-time, depending on your situation, is a lot, right? It implies being able to make a certain amount of money with it. It implies like all of this stuff, right? That takes a while to get there. So I think imagining like smaller steps, like have you gone through and done a lot of like beta and critique reading, right? Have you taken editing courses? I think Meredith E. Phillips on AuthorTube is going through and taking a bunch of editing courses, which I obviously haven't taken them, but she seems like she's really enjoying them and they're being very helpful. So like build up those qualifications that will not only give you the skills you need, tell other people you have the skills you need, and like make you feel like you have some official like, you know. And then the next step I would say is just starting to slowly build it up and start more casually. Start where you're comfortable, right? You don't have to shove yourself out there into being like, I am in a formal like writer, editor. I mean, I guess this is more for editing, but like, you know, you don't have to necessarily jump right there. You can start by maybe offering like free editing once you like feel like you have the skills you need to people in the writing community, like offering like it as critique partners and then like giving really full advice and then asking for feedback from the people that you give advice to and building that out. And then eventually you can, you know, start charging for it and like do it small, do it incrementally until you feel comfortable with it. But I mean, as long as you're pricing yourself accordingly and like being competitive with other people and you've taken the time to like learn how to edit and to provide feedback, I mean, I think go for it, right? And the thing with imposter syndrome is that unless you're the type of person that just doesn't have imposter syndrome, you're always going to have imposter syndrome, right? Like I don't think it's something that ever goes away. Like it doesn't matter how famous and big and popular and everything that you get. Like I feel like there's always that fear of like, oh, people are going to realize that I'm not actually this good or I'm not actually this qualified or this was just a fluke. You know what I mean? So I think that trying to make decisions just knowing that even if you reach your dreams, right, you are making a very good full-time salary, being a full-time writer and editor, you're still going to have that imposter syndrome. So I think thinking about it in a way of like, okay, yes, this is here, these are feelings, but, you know, as much as you can, right, try not to give them power over the actual decisions you make. I mean, I think that's my best advice. It's kind of hard, but like, you know, take the time to map out the things you think need to happen before you're ready to do all these things, do them, and then just take the plunge, right? And don't let that imposter syndrome like keep you back, right? That's my best advice there. The next question is, now that you've left your full-time day job, have you found it easier to make your writing a non-negotiable in your life? Did it up the importance of getting in your writing time? I always struggled to prioritize writing because it's not technically serving my family in any substantial way. Extremely long process that may result in nothing compared to quick results like house cleaning, cooking dinner, time spent together, etc. I mean, yes, it's definitely made it easier to make a non-negotiable, which I've sort of talked about before, right? Like, I know I have this time, like, unless the kids are homesick or, like, off school to an extent, but, like, I can do it, right? And I know that writing in the morning is the most important time of day for me, for getting writing in, just because, like, my brain is fresh, I haven't, like, focused in on anything else yet, right? So I can just focus that in on my writing. So it's been a lot easier to make it a priority, absolutely, like, it, other than the fact that, like, I've had some things that, from a scheduling perspective, have been a little, like, wonky, just trying to find a balance between all the things I need to do after signing up for too much. But, like, yes, it's a bajillion times easier. I will say though, like, I think different people will have different types of problems with this, right? And I don't think this is something that I've necessarily struggled with. Once I got to the point where I, had been writing for a while up to this point, not super seriously, right? Like I'd written some books or started writing some books. I had started this plan and like written some chapters for like this big epic fantasy novel, right? Like I'd been writing since, I started writing like little like chapter books when I was in elementary school, right? Like I've always written, and like it's been ebbs and flows, but when I was, I think I was still in college, near the end of college, but I just kind of realized that I wanted to be a published author. Like that is my dream. That's where I want to go with my life, and this passion, and I want to get there, and I want to like look into this and research it and actually it was almost like a switch flipped where I realized like this is a thing I want to do, so I need to figure out how to get there. You know what I mean? And since then, like I've taken like a month or two off when I've had like big stuff come up in my life, or when I was having like some health problems, but like for the last seven years, I don't know, maybe 5, I don't know, but for some number of years that is substantial to me now, I have consistently been writing constantly, and I've been writing in a way where like I'm doing a lot of research on craft books. Like I'm putting a lot of focus into the accomplishment of my future publishing, author, writing goals, right? And that's been a priority through like, well, actually I guess it must be like 6 years. No. Yeah, like 7 years. Because I started when I was pregnant with my son, who's now 6. So yeah, it's been about 7 years. And basically, even when I was home on maternity leave, I was writing. And like, you have to pick priorities, and those have to be balanced with your family, right? Like you said here, like, it feels like you're, serving your family more by cleaning your house, cooking dinner time, spending time with them, etc. And like, I think it's just about priorities, right? Like, now I'm getting better about it, but like, we wouldn't get our laundry done, right? Like, it would be in baskets. We'd go until we're basically out of clothes and then have to run laundry and then be like getting clothes out of baskets. Our dishes were not a priority to keep clean all the time. Keeping our house clean was not a priority. I did a vlog where I showed sort of like a real raw vlog looking into what it's like being a mom of 2 and a wife and having a full-time job and also prioritizing writing, and just like I showed the state of my house, right, the way it usually is, and just it has to be something that you're choosing to do otherwise, right? But you talked about like how do you prioritize it when it doesn't feel like it's serving your family, and I think that's complicated, right? Like there's the part of it where you have to prioritize yourself, right? And the more you serve yourself, the more you can serve others, right? If you are constantly draining yourself and not fulfilling yourself and not meeting your own like dreams and the things that like make your soul feel whole and happy, then how are you going to really be there for other people, right? And something that I think about a lot too, right, as a mom, and I think this applies to like parents and anyone in that sort of a role, but I am showing my children how to live their life, right? Like that's one of the main goals, right? Like, are my kids going to remember that the dishes were always done and the house was always dusted and the floors were always vacuumed, right? Are they going to remember that? Or are they going to remember that their mom loved them and had these passions and was able to, even with everything else, right, was able to put all this time into their passions, and that they, my children, can do that too, right? My kids can have their passions. My kids can prioritize that. Like, they can put all this time into those things. And I think that's important too, right? Finding that balance between, like, you don't have to sacrifice everything about who you are and your dreams and, like, all these other hobbies, because then that's what you're teaching your children to do too, right? You're showing your kids, like, hey, you have to do all these things because they're so important, and you're not going to have time left for these things, right? And I also don't want my children to feel like, and I mean, this isn't necessarily a comment on your situation, right? This is just my own internal monologue and motivation behind these things. But I dream of being a writer, right? And if I put that off until after like my kids are out of the house or something, right? I don't want my kids to have that burden on themselves that because of them, their mom put off their dreams. You know what I mean? And like, yes, I know sometimes that is necessary, right? And like we sacrifice for our kids, like end of, right? Like we absolutely do as parents. But I think we still got to show them that like you can do all of it and like prioritize it. And yeah, maybe the dishes won't always be done. Yeah, maybe your bathrooms will get cleaned half as fast, right? But you're still showing your kids another way of living that I think is also very important, right? And things that they're going to remember. Like, my kids are so proud of me. Like, it makes me a little teary-eyed just thinking about it, but like, my kids are so proud of me. I tell them when I finish a book and when I finish writing things and I make big phases or when I'm like writing and working hard on things. And they're seeing me focus so hard and work so hard on these things that I care about, which is teaching them that they can also work hard and showing them the advantages of that, like really hard work on things that they're passionate about, right? And so they celebrate my successes with me, right? And they'll like hug me and they'll tell me they're proud of me, which is adorable. They're like 4 and 6, right? So they're still little, but I think that's so beautiful, you know? And I think the other big factor that I haven't touched on yet is your partner, right? I know there's a lot of different situations and there's a lot of different expectations between, you know, how your role is in your family and what the expectations are and how to manage that and all that stuff, right? Like, my husband is so amazing. Like, I am so incredibly lucky to have the husband that I have. Like, he is always, like, been fine with like my ADHD hyperfixations, like deciding I wanted to like knit and getting tons of supplies and then knitting obsessively for a month and then just never doing it again, right? Like he understands me, but also like he knows how important writing like this is to me, and he has always supported me taking the time to do it. And obviously like right now we are financially, like he is the only one bringing in money to our household, right? Like I'm making money, some money, right, with AuthorTube and Worldbuilder Tube. I don't know if there's a word for that, but like, and my Patreon, right? Like I'm bringing in some money right now, but it's all being funneled back into my like publishing business, right? Because that's expensive. So like I am not contributing financially to my household right now. Now I am covering all the time my kids are sick or out of school or all of that, which like we couldn't really support that before. And so yes, there are expectations like in our agreement that we made with each other on that, like I need to spend more of my time in the evenings and the weekends now cleaning and taking care of the house because I'm not spending that time on my writing. So like we're making slow progress, but he's been super duper supportive of like, okay, like I overbooked myself and I've been working 60, 80-hour weeks. If I'm like, I have a deadline, I need to make it, I need to work all evening, every evening, and most of the weekend, he's like, okay, right? And he just steps up and he does it. And then, you know, I think it's reciprocal, right? Like when he wants to do something, I will absolutely make it happen, right? If he's like, I want to go do this, I'm like, do it, I'll cover everything else, right? And when I've needed to take a lot from him, right? Like if I have a big deadline and I'm working really hard and he has to cover a lot of other stuff, I'll then try to very intentionally make up for it later. You know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily transactional, but it's like, okay, like, he's built up a lot of stress and hasn't had a lot of time to relax, so now I'm going to give that to him, right? Because he deserves that, and I love him, and I want him to have that, right? So it balances itself out where neither of us get too stressed out, and we know that we can rely on the other person to kind of step up and cover. So I think that's really important. And I think that there are some more traditional households, right, where a lot of things are expected on the wife, right, that, I don't know, I mean, I have been in that kind of a relationship, but not like long term, like I'm not, like, my marriage is nothing like that, so it's hard for me to comment on that, but I would hope that you have a spouse that is supportive and can understand the importance of your dreams, right? And even if it's not for like this financial thing that's going to serve your family later, right? it's going to serve you, right? And it's going to serve your dreams, and that helps show your kids a good example of the lives you want them to be able to live later. And, you know, it fulfills you in a way where you can help your family, and if it makes you happy, right? Like, you just have to find a way to shift your priorities and your time around, right? And even if it's like a small amount of time every day or like one day a week, like you can start building it up. And, you know, I know it's hard, but that's kind of my thoughts and advice, if that helps at all. I feel like I don't have super specific advice because I don't know your super specific situation, but that's kind of my relevant thoughts. All right, and then the last question for this section, how long have I been talking? Like 20 minutes? Oh boy. The last question for this section was there any particular resource that you found really helpful in making the transition from your day job to full-time writer? For example, a financial resource that helped you save money, or an organizational resource that helped you progress in your writing. So I mean, it definitely wasn't a thing that I just decided to do and did it overnight, and it's also something that I wasn't intentionally working towards, even though I was moving in that direction for the last 7-ish years, right? So like, I started researching a ton of craft books, right? Like, I have shelves of craft books. I'm looking at like my big list of them, right? I read a ton of them. I found the ones I liked. I very intentionally like have mapped them out and utilized them and build up on my like craft knowledge. I've found a ton of videos here on AuthorTube talking about craft and how to do all of this stuff, and found ones that work for me. And like, I have spent a lot of time building up this knowledge and this craft. There's great podcasts, and I think it's like always a learning process, but I've been doing that very intentionally for like 7 years now, right? So that's one thing, right? It's just looking at, like, I would probably start by just looking up AuthorTubers and being like, what are their craft book recommendations, and starting there. I have a video on that, I think, but like my big ones are, I do love Save the Cat Writes a Novel. I really, really love Story Genius by Lisa Cron. Love, love, love that one, right? And like, understand that you can take bits and pieces of all of these, and you have to find ones that match the way you want to write in your writing style. Like with Story Genius, I don't really like any of their plotting stuff, right? But like, their starting bits on how to build up these like ticking things to the start, how you build up motivation beforehand. Like, I like all that starting background stuff for how they do it, and then how they plan out like their first couple scenes. But then the rest of it, I'm like, I don't need this. I like a more rigid structure, right? I love Save the Cat just for understanding how to weave these things together, even though I don't necessarily use most of those beats. I use some of them, but not all of them. And then once I kind of got through those basics and a bunch of other ones, like I think in the video where I talk about craft books, like the thumbnail shows like just tons and tons of books that I have personally read and studied and like notated and taken notes on. There's a lot of them. But Robert McKee's books on story, character, dialogue, action, those have been more advanced ones that I've really liked. But I think that's part of it. And then just, I've written a few books now, right? I've built up to the point where like, I feel like I have confidence in my writing. I've worked with beta readers. I've worked with critique partners. I've had books professionally edited now, right? So like, I've gone through these learning processes enough that like, I've learned a lot, and I've built up my confidence in my own writing, right? So I think that's part of it. Another part of it is just, I've been watching on YouTube a lot of self-published authors, and, you know, like how they've paid for things, what they've had to pay for. And I've done that over like the years, where I've kind of like just been slowly building up this kind of background knowledge and information in it. And then I did the Heart Breathing's Publish and Thrive course, which breaks down a lot of stuff. Like, I think that's invaluable, honestly, if you're going to self-publish. So I've done that. I've budgeted. I've had a lot of time in the background to think about how I would do it, even when I was planning to go trad. But, you know, once I decided that I wanted to do this, right? Like, the first things I did were I signed up for the Publish and Thrive course, right? That was a big first thing I did. I made a budget out for all my books, which I don't have it on me. But I basically was like, okay, like, I've gone through all these courses. I've watched all these videos about their budgets and timelines and how much money they've spent on things and how long it took them to, you know. And so I wrote all that out. Like, okay, this is kind of how much I think I want to spend on things. Like, I looked up cover artists to try and figure out like how much I wanted to spend to get the quality I wanted to get and how expensive that is. I looked up editors and found people in the community that I trusted and looked at who they recommended and looked at how much they charged. And like, I calculated everything out and I broke it down to figure out how much I would need to publish each book, right? I mapped out what I thought my writing trajectory would look like and how often I would need to publish, right? And how often I would need to pay to publish a book. And then I did some research gathering, like, okay, what's the startup things I need to pay for, right? Like, I need to pay for Publish and Thrive. I want to pay for, there's a lot of other starting things. Like, there were some books and stuff that I got. There was some software that I got, like I got Atticus, which is a book formatting software. Just like all those like one-time starting up expenses that I would have to pay for. I figured out what all those would be, how much they cost, and then I figured out my like monthly expenses for this, right? Like, I pay for Adobe to edit, you know, my videos and do my maps and everything. I pay for StreamYard to do streaming. I pay for Epidemic Sound to get music rights. Like, I pay for a lot of stuff, Canva for making thumbnails and graphics. And I looked up like all those things I do, all the things I would need to add, like eventually expanding my MailerLite for bigger newsletter subscriptions, and just figured out, okay, like this is how much I need to pay every month. This is how much I want to pay per book and when I'm going to need the money and basically like how much money I need per year and all of that stuff. And then I planned out how I was going to be getting income, right? And so part of this was, you know, I'm lucky in that I've spent years building up my YouTube, right? So I'm at the point where I do sort of make money from YouTube. Like, AdSense is not really a good way to make money. And I don't really do a lot of sponsorships. I'm open to the idea of doing them at some point, but I don't know. But like, I make maybe $50 every 1 to 2 months from AdSense, right? Like, it's not a lot of money. It covers like my Adobe subscription. And then I have my Patreon now, which I had sort of projected out how much I was going to make from that. And my goal was to have all that income that I have coming in regularly. And like, I'm not doing like editing or anything like that, but if you were and you could project like how much you thought you would make, you know, you can do that. And I basically wanted my monthly income, right, to cover my monthly subscriptions, right, so that I could continue moving forward other than like the book publishing, right? And the hope would be that I would make enough money of like extra money from the other stuff combined with eventually once I am actually publishing to sort of feed back into that. And then obviously I had to save up in advance. And so we had decided that we were going to switch to one income a few months, and like we were sort of preparing for the possibility of it because like we were looking at a lot of options for a lot of things, but we basically started living off one income and I started putting all the money I made into an account to fund this. And I had originally wanted to fund, I think like 4 to 6 books. I can't remember how many exactly it was, but like I wanted to have enough money to publish that many books with the hope that then at that point I would be able to be self-sufficient, right? So I think if you were going to try to do it, if you knew that you were going to be able to maintain an income that would at least cover the monthly stuff, figure out how much you'd want to publish a book for, right? Because there are a lot of degrees of how much money you can put into it, right? Like you can publish a book for probably under a couple $100 if you wanted to do everything yourself and kind of do the bare minimum, right? Like if that was kind of what you wanted to do, you can do that for sure. I wanted to basically have like Big 5 trad comparable like book publishing, right? So I had to budget for that. And my budget right now, or my plan for how much it costs to publish a book is between like $8,000 and $10,000 a book, which is a lot of money, right? Like my cover design is expensive, like commissioning character art is expensive, paying a social media person is expensive, paying for book editors is really freaking expensive. But my hope is that saving up that money before and being able to do that will hopefully pay off at a comparable income, you know what I mean? So I think it just depends on what your goals are, what you want to do, and what your capabilities for saving up are. Like if you can only save up a couple, like $1,000, right? then maybe, okay, your budget is like $200 per book, and then hopefully like by the time you've published 5 books, you're starting to make that income back, and as your income grows, you can put more money into publishing the books. And my plan is right now, if by the time I've worked through all my like initial savings, right, for this, if I'm not making enough money to be putting enough money into future book publishings to put like 8 to 10 grand per book, then I'm just going to have to scale back, right? Like whatever I can build up to by that point is going to set my budget going forward. So I think just like looking at it like that, and planning ahead of, how to do that. I will also add in terms of resources, right? Like Publish and Thrive was the best specific resource, and then obviously just watching tons and tons of videos and just kind of crowdsourcing information was helpful. But also, I have a friend in my writing group who is a pretty dang successful self-published author now, right? And so she's given me a decent bit of advice. She rocks. And then my mom is a business owner, right? So she has an S Corp. And she's gone through, like, she does a lot of the finances and, like, working with the lawyers to get all the basic legal stuff done, right? So, like, I sat down with her with my business plan and was like, okay, like, I've done Publish and Thrive. Like, I think I know what I want to do. Like, I want to start an LLC. I want it to be, like, the sole proprietor or sole owner LLC. I don't want to have an S Corp. I want to file my taxes like this. I want to do this. And, like, I walked through my plan with her and, like, all the steps I need to take and, everything, and she gave me a lot of feedback. She's helped me create spreadsheets for like profit and loss statements for being able to give that to an accountant to do my taxes, or even it's probably going to be simple enough that my husband can do it for now, but like just making sure I was set up to have all of that. And I think that's a huge benefit for me, and it's a big privilege for me that I have a mom who is a very successful business owner that can give me help. And like if I get into a rough spot, right, I could just be like, Mom, I need help, and she can help me. Or I can be like, I don't know how to do this, and she can be like, okay, here's my lawyer's contact information. Here's my accountant's contact information, right? Like, reach out to them, let's go, right? The other thing I have a lot of advice, or a lot of support on, which isn't like directly related to this question, but like my sister is also in media, graphics and advertising and marketing. Like that's literally her job. And also she's ran like pretty successful like Instagram accounts for a long time. She has her own businesses, right? So like she's going to help me do all my ads and my marketing and all of that kind of stuff. And so like I have people in my life that can help support me. And so I would try to take advantage of anyone in your life who might have experience or knowledge that you can talk to, or people in writing groups or anything like that. But that's kind of my suggestion. I think it's also not a bad idea to talk to someone who is relatively financially savvy or is familiar with like business plans or anything like that, just to make sure you have like a plan and everything's accounted for. If it is interesting to people, right? Like I can share, like I don't want my account to be something where I'm like, this is how you publish, da da da, right? Like that's not really my content style. But if you all want me to share with you essentially my business plan and how I worked all this out and like everything I put together when I was starting to do this, I can make a video and walk through that. I can't promise it's like, great or perfect or any of those things, but like I can at least give you, like show you that as a starting point if people are interested in that. But okay, that's the end of the full-time questions. So the next questions are all publishing related, which we've gotten to a little bit, but so the first question was, I have not gotten a chance to catch up with the latest videos, so how did you decide that self-pub was the better choice for yourself? There's another video on that, but to give a brief recap, basically, since I was going full-time, I have the time to self-publish, right? The time that it takes to self-publish a book was one of the big reasons why I had decided to go trad before, because with a full-time job, with 2 kids, a wonderful loving relationship with my husband that I want to put time and energy into, I didn't have time to write and do all the stuff required to self-publish at the level that I'd want to do it. So it just wasn't really an option for me. And also I didn't have the confidence before that I have now. Like I feel like there's still a lot of imposter syndrome. There's still a lot of doubt, but like I feel like I have the tools and resources to be able to put something out there that I can be proud of, whether or not, like I'm sure 3 books down the road, I'm going to be like, barf, But like, you know, I have more confidence. And then the last big factor is that I think the books I want to write and the style with which I want to write is a lot more suitable for self-publishing right now, because I like building really intense, complicated worlds. I like really leaning into like building unique cultures and societies that serve the stories and the characters, right? And when you're going towards trad publishing, right, like again, the best thing to go about is like a standalone with series potential. That's a big keyword, right? And you don't write that series until your book is sold, right? And you can get a publishing deal where they're like, okay, we want this book and we'll buy the next 2 books in the series so that I can write them, right? But if you're just going to query, you write one standalone with series potential. And, you know, you can't really write the later books in the series. So I was getting into this rut of like, okay, I have to do all this world building for every individual book because they're completely different series, they're completely different stories. And also, it's not worth it for me to get that much into the world building because, again, it might just be for this one book. And I like doing all that stuff. And I like writing series. And I like, you know, so it's just, standalones isn't really what I like to write and what I want to write. So those are kind of the big high-level things, right? Next question. How are you navigating LLCs versus DBAs? An LLC is a limited liability corporation. That's basically where you start a little company and if, you know, you do everything through the business. And so if you get sued, the business gets sued, the business assets, right, are there, and then your assets are protected. And someone suing your LLC isn't going to be able to like take your house, right? That's the idea. It's more complicated than that. I'm not a financial advisor, like talk to a financial advisor who knows something more about it, but that's my understanding of it. Versus a DBA, which is a doing business as, and that's essentially where you can legally file to legally do business under another name, right? So like Madeline James isn't my real name, right? Madeline is my real first name, but like, you know, I have a pen name. A lot of writers have pen names. So I can legally do things if you have a DBA under that pen name, right? When it comes to starting your self-publishing business, I feel so unsure about this piece of the process, probably because I haven't seen many folks talk about it. Thank you. I would say like honestly, if it's in your budget, the Publish and Thrive course was very helpful for this for me. But I think that my understanding is that I think you can get away with not doing any of those things if you want. I think it's fine. I think it's something that you can add later and it's not really the end of the world. Like the odds of like writers getting sued for this sort of thing is like especially for writing fiction. Like I think the odds of it are so small and there are like a lot of complications with it. And if you're self-publishing and like you haven't gotten big yet, I don't know if you really need to worry about it. I flip-flopped a lot between doing it and not. And I sort of like, again, because I'm making this my full-time job and I'm also doing all of my other world building stuff, I'm like, let's just make an LLC just to keep it neat and tidy. And it allows me to like have that like publishing logo on my books and like have a publishing company and it like looks good. It was a pain in the butt. I ended up hiring a registered agent to do all of that for me. I used, I think, like Northwest resident agents or something like that, but I ended up doing that. I tried filing it myself first and it didn't work. But I did that and I did have them also file for a DBA for me for Madeline James so that I can officially do business like that. Again, if people have questions about, you know, like if people want me to do a full video talking about like how I'm setting all this stuff up, I can do that. I'm not an expert though, but you know, it's stuff that my mom also recommended. But again, like my mom is like an extremely successful businesswoman. Like when I say she's extremely successful, like she is extremely successful. So like, you know, she leans a little bit more in that direction, but like, I think it's something that's not going to hurt to do unless it's like, I don't know. But like, if you're not going to put a ton of money into publishing your books, if your like stuff is really niche, if you're not going to publish that often, right? Like if it's like more like a hobby thing that you're leaning into, then I probably wouldn't worry about it yet. If you start getting big, then maybe start moving stuff under an LLC or start doing future books under an LLC. Or if you're like gonna like really push and you have other stuff to start your business, then maybe go for it. But yeah, Publish and Thrive really helped me. Sarah Cannon in there has a lot of stuff about LLCs and DBAs and like all the options, and that was very helpful for me to feel comfortable making that choice. But like, I agree, that was one of those things that I was really unsure about, and I was just kind of like, but I figured this is what I'm doing full time. I'm just gonna do it, right? So I did it. I have business bank accounts. I have all of my like I'm moving everything in there. It's taken a lot of time. Like, it has taken a significant amount of time to get the LLCs filed. Like, it takes like a month and a half to get, like, for it to be successful. And then there's like sequences of things that you have to do, and then filing for the DBA, and then there's like other things you have to file now legally. And then I had to get like apply for my business bank accounts, which were complicated. I had to write like an operating agreement for my business, and I had to fit all these like things to give myself the ability to open a bank account under the business's name. And then there's like requirements for business bank accounts, and I did a lot of research on the bank to use, and like I'm still getting everything moved over and getting like everything set up, and I've been working on this for almost 6 months now. Like it is like I haven't been like putting that much time like consistently into it, but like it is a process if you're gonna go all the way like to like you are starting a business, you know what I mean, versus just like publishing on the side as a hobby. Like, I think there's kind of a big difference there. Something to think about. So then someone asked, do you intend to publish traditional publishing after the indie route, just indie, or a mix of both? Right now, I only intend to go indie. I'm open to doing something that's both. The thing with it is that if you think about it from a cadence perspective, like if I am writing, I can have a book ready to publish every like 9 months, right? That's kind of what I'm looking at right now for my like writing timeline. 9 months to a year max if I have to do a ton of world building to start a new series, right? If I decided one of those books, right, which again, I'd have to write a standalone. Like, let's say I had an idea for a standalone that was, you know, out like a whole separate thing outside of all my worlds, right? I would lose that spot in my publishing cadence where all of a sudden I would go from every 9 months to it would be a year and a half between publishing books, which would kind of be a problem, right? I don't want to go further out than a year between books. So if I had the time to fit in an extra book, like say I started writing something on the side for some reason and I got a whole extra book done, then maybe, right? Because that book is going to take, like from the time you start like querying to get an agent, like you're talking probably bare minimum 3 years before that book is going to be published. Like, you have to query for an agent, you have to do edits with the agent, and then you have to go in submission, and then you have to do edits with that company, and then it has to go through all the publishing pipelines. Like, it is a very long process. So, like, you're giving up a spot in your publishing cadence to have something potentially happen way out there, right? So that's one reason that I'm like, about it. Now, if someone, like if I become a successful self-published author, right, and there's a publishing house that reaches out to me and they want to start like publishing books for me too, right, like there could potentially be a way I could work it into my cadence. But again, like it would be tricky, right? Like I would consider it, or if like a traditional house wanted to like pick up my self-published books, like I would maybe, like it's something I would look at. I would definitely look at getting an agent for like, or, you know, working with a publisher for things like audio rights and having audiobooks produced. My friend who's a pretty, like is growing as a, like she's still new, but she's like becoming pretty successful as a self-published author. She's sold her audio rights to companies that produce audiobooks and like is working with them, and they are like traditionally publishing essentially her audiobooks, although her ebooks and like her regular books, paperbacks, ebooks, all of that are self-published. And then there's also like you could sell foreign rights, right? Like there are other big markets. There's like Germany, there's Italy, there's France, that are some of the other big markets to have your books translated and published there, right? I could see selling those rights, right? Because it's not coming out of your cadence, right? So those are things I'm looking at. I don't know if I would want to entirely switch to traditional publishing. I think if I became uber famous, I would just start hiring more people, you know? Like, I think once you have control over it, you just go for it, right? Like, unless I became, like, I don't know. I don't really see myself completely switching over to it. I don't see too much of a benefit. At the point that I'm famous enough, right, and well-known enough that I could trust that I would be able to consistently have a traditionally publishing career where I wouldn't expect to just, you know, maybe have books sit, right? Like, I know I'd always be able to get my books published. At that point, I'd be successful enough that I'm making enough money self-publishing that, like, why, you know? Next question. For the book cover, will you hire an artist or consider learning and do it yourself? I am not a digital graphic artist. I know there are people who make their own book covers, but, like, it's not something I've ever really considered doing. I have already hired a cover artist. She is hand illustrating my book, right? Like, it's not just pulling, like there's different, like, types of books. Sometimes they pull stock photos and they, like, use Photoshop and they edit it to a book cover. Like, my book cover is going to be hand illustrated by a digital artist. She's fantastic, by the way. And I've gone through, like, multiple stages of revisions. And I think there's just, like, it depends on what you're trying to do, right? Like, if you're going more the hobby route where you just want to publish a book, you're not necessarily trying to, like, sink thousands of dollars into a book, right? And you want to grow it up slow. Because you can always get, like, different covers later, right? I think that in that case, like, sure, like, hire a cheap cover designer or, like, learn how to do it yourself and do something pretty basic. And I think that you can learn, but I don't know, like, it is a type of artistry that it really depends on you personally and your personal skills and passions. Like, if that sort of thing is a passion for you that you want to learn to do and that is going to be, like, a thing, right? Then I think go for it, right? But it just, I don't know. It's not something I would personally want to do. It's, like, just a side thing because I think it is such an important piece of art that goes along with your book, you know? Like, if you're not really an artist, if you don't really have an eye for that kind of stuff, if you don't really spend all this time looking at what's out there and, like, have an eye for the colors and how to portray mood and how to portray genre, like, there is so much that goes into a cover that I feel like half-assing it, if it's not something you're really that passionate about and really that knowledgeable about, doesn't super make sense if you're trying to get, like, a really, really good cover, you know? Like, just working with the cover designer that I have, right? And the amount of intentionality and art and passion she is able to put into this, I could never do that, right? I am artistic, right? Like, I don't know if I've shown pictures of, like, my art. Like, I'll show, like, a painting here or something. But, like, I am artistic. I can do really great oil paintings. That's kind of my focus, right? Like, I have a creative mind. I have a good eye for that sort of thing. I used to go, when I was growing up, to a traditional art school on Saturdays. But, like, I'm not a digital artist, right? I barely know my way around Photoshop, right? Like, it is not a thing that I've personally been passionate about and, like, have taken tons of courses and learned how to do and then learned how to specifically apply that to book covers, right? Like, and I just think letting that art be true art from someone who they're putting their passion and all their interests and their skills into this, right? Like, if you were to ask a cover designer to, like, just write the book on the side that's going to go with the cover, like, that's not going to be nearly as good, you know? So, like, I think unless, like, you are a cover artist, right? As well as a writer, like, I wouldn't do it. But, like, again, it depends on how much, like, money you have to put into it and, like, you know. And that's sort of my thoughts on it. I don't know. But yeah, no. I'm not personally gonna do it myself. I'm gonna try to make some, like, character art by myself at some point. I've also commissioned character art. Like, I have, it's, like, over there, not that you can see it, but, like, I've commissioned character art for my book, and it's pretty great. I like to support artists. I like to celebrate, like, having those different perspectives into your book and different people's takes on the stories and, like, I don't know. I think it's a wonderful part of writing, and books in general, but yeah. And no shade at all. This is not shade for people that, like, want to learn to do it themselves just because they want to. Like, go for it. You do you. I think it's a personal choice, right? Next section, which I only have one question on, is on, like, AuthorTube or YouTube. And this was, did you or do you still struggle with any form of imposter syndrome since you started posting videos, doing collabs, and growing your audience? And how do you keep that voice at bay so you can keep showing up for all these new opportunities? Thank you. Yeah, I still have imposter syndrome. Huge imposter syndrome with like everything. Basically everything. And I think that part of my approach has been presenting things in a way that is true to, I don't want to say my confidence level, but like I'm not trying to pretend to be something I'm not. I'm not trying to pretend that I have experience that I'm not. I am very uncomfortable with the idea of making like a how-to video, like a explicit how-to video. Not counting my world building stuff, right? But like how to edit your book, how to write a book, how to build characters, right? If you'll notice, all of my videos are kind of from the perspective of like, ooh, I'm doing this, let me show you how I'm doing it and like what I'm thinking about and what I've learned, and it's just me sharing these experiences, right? And that makes it a lot easier for me because I try to make it very clear that I'm not an expert, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just learning things, and you can learn along with me, and if you have more information, that's great. If you don't, you know, maybe this will help you. I don't want to call it like humility, because I don't know, it's not that, it's just, I don't know. I feel like how-tos and that kind of explicit advice, those kind of videos do better on YouTube than the type of stuff I do, but I'm not comfortable doing that, so I don't, right? So I think that helps. Also, I really learned, and this gets more into the world building side of it, right? I have learned that even the creators that are huge, right? They still have imposter syndrome, right? They're still like just doing the same thing. There isn't like, and I think it's this concept of like how we think about like celebrities, right? That they're bigger people that, I don't know, that like look down on all the little folks and the little channels and their fans, and that they're like this other breed of person. And like, that hasn't been the case to me anytime I've interacted with creators that are significantly bigger. Like, we're all just people doing the same thing, right? And I think that remembering that they are just like a random person just like you who decided to start a channel, and like more people look at their videos maybe, but like they're just a person, you know what I mean? And so I think thinking about it like that is important, and I think treating them as a human being, right, is important. If you reach out to a big creator in a way where you're trying to like take advantage of the fact that they're a big creator, like you're not treating them as a person, right? You're treating them as like a public object that you can take advantage of. You know what I mean? So I think trying to be intentional about that and like reaching out to people from a human perspective is important. But it's definitely taking me a very long time still to build relationships with and reach out to other creators, right? That's something that I really struggle with. I really struggle about it in real life too. But it's hard for me to reach out to people. It's hard for me to build those kinds of relationships. I have like one collab that's coming out, right? And, you know, I think I emailed them. Did I email them? Did they email me? I think I emailed them at some point. And, you know, it's just, I don't know. It's been weird. It's weird for me to do stuff with other people. But I really wanted to build relationships with other author tubers. And I'm hoping I still continue to do that. I have, like, a couple friends. Like, I feel like the author tuber that I've had the most interaction with over time has been Meredith E. Phillips, who I think is fantastic. I love her. But, like, I don't know. You just gotta treat them as people and treat them as people and think about them as people and like be respectful and like, I don't know. They're human beings. We're all human beings, right? And for the most part, like you can just reach out to people. Like I've had tons of people in the community that like I just like chat with and I'm kind of friends with now, and they're just like random people who've watched my videos. Like it's not a weird thing. Like I can tell when people are like reaching out to me and it's more of a, I don't know, like they're trying to take advantage of the fact that like I have a channel. And then it's like, yeah, I'm not going to be like super friendly with you. I'm going to be respectful and be like, okay, like, you know, no, I can't do that, whatever. But like, and this has been more the case of the world building side. I found the world building community is a lot more like, I don't know. It's been easier for me to connect with them, I think, than the author side, which is weird. But like my world building guide got pretty big. And I think that's the only thing that I've done as like explicit guides. And that wasn't even like intentional. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh. I had no intention of having this big thing. I made all those original guides up to biomes. Biomes is the first one in my world building guide series that I made knowing people were going to watch it. I wrote out all the other things on my blog, basically for me, so I would remember how to do it and as like a way to format my research and stuff. And then I made videos on it once I was like, I'm gonna post it on YouTube because I have a channel now and why not, you know? And then eventually it took off and I was like, holy crap, people are actually looking at this. So like I kept with the same kind of process. But something you'll notice in the way I approach that is I like to think about it very academically. It's a very different type of thing, right? But I give all of my supporting information and research before I give my process for doing it, right? And my idea with that is that it's a very collaborative space where people will like take someone's guide on how to do something, they'll add more research, they'll expand it, they'll make it better, right? And then they'll like go with that. And that's just kind of how the community works, right? So I like to add resources. I cite where I get my information from. I provide like why things work the way they do so that people can take that information and expand on it and build it. And it's not me saying this is the only way to do it. This is the extent of the information. And I just say it like, I'm like, here's all this information I've learned. So this is the way to do this. Go forth and follow this or adapt it. Like, all of that. And now I'm working with, some various like academics and getting like more like academic focused like research material and stuff, especially with the culture guide stuff, because that can get hairy. And so that's like the one thing where I feel like I've been more, this is how to do things, right? And like I have so much imposter syndrome with it still. Like I'll be like talking to people in like my Discord for in like one of the Patreon channels, for example, and so we'll be like, here's my map on doing like air circulation, like what do people think? And I'll be like, I think that looks great, like you could maybe do this, but like I don't know what I'm talking about. And people were like, I literally used your guide. Like you're literally the person who should be giving me advice on this and like the voice of reason. And I'm like, yeah, but like I don't really know what I'm doing. And there's so many people in the community that know so much and that consume like all of my guides and then like all of Artifexian's guides, and like there's tons of other guides out there. Like maybe they go super hard and they look at all of world building pasta stuff, and like there's a lot of stuff out there that people will pull, and like I think there's tons of people in my community that know more than I do, right? And I've sort of built up this reputation, isn't the right way to put it, but like the thing that I bring to the community, that I bring to this space, as I've been told by people and why people watch my content, is that I distill these really complicated topics into more simple like guides, right? Because that's how I have to do it for myself. So like you can get really technical, but like I tend to leave numbers out of it. I tend to leave math out of it. I try to find simple patterns like while still leaning into the science behind it. And so like people enjoy the way I do that, which is really just me showing this is how I have learned, like I researched it and this is how I understand it and this is how I portray it, and like I'm just showing how my brain works to learn and understand and do these things, which then also helps other people to see how I've broken it down, and then they can expand on it and do different things, and like, which is why my rocks and like deposits videos were so long, because there wasn't really any foundational guides for me to build off of, so I had to do everything from scratch, which means I had to build up all the information for everything from scratch. So it took a very long time to like lay out like, okay, this is all the underlying information I had to use to build this out, and I couldn't just be like, okay, we have this general understanding in the community of this, so I can just use that piece and expand on it. So that's been a whole process. But did I actually answer the question? Yeah, I mean, I think being authentic, like at least the way I approach YouTube, has been very important for me. Like, I don't know, I don't do videos because I think people would want to see them. I do videos that I want to do, and, I do it the way that I think about it in a way that serves me in my process. And that just keeps it very authentic to me and keeps it from being something that makes me feel like I'm being fake or that I'm being like, I don't know. That's sort of how I've approached it, is just trying to be very, very authentic about the content I put out there and the way I approach things, and like not trying to do things in ways that would get more views or get more subscribers or whatever. Like, that's not the approach I take. If that's the approach you want to take, I don't know how to help you, because like that would make me super uncomfortable. But there's other creators that do that sort of thing. So that's kind of the best advice I have. Find things you're comfortable with, find things that fit within your niche, and just like share your process, right? I think a lot of people here, like, we like just following people's journey. So just, you know, and it takes time to build up like skills. So I don't think you can really, like, I think you have to start putting out videos and stuff in order to start iterating and growing. If you don't start, you're never gonna, like, get better. Like, my early videos are super cringe. If I go back and look at them, it's like, what? So, like, just, I don't know, just start. They're gonna suck, but they're supposed to suck. Like, early videos should suck, in my opinion. So just make sucky videos and put them out until all of a sudden you realize, hey, this doesn't suck that much. People are watching this. There you go. That's my best advice. Okay. Last section. How long have I been talking for like an hour? Oh my god. Okay, writing questions. I only have 2 here, so we're probably close. The first question is, how do you handle discovering a book with something similar to what you've written into your unpublished book? So like same character name, similar magic system, similar personality of main character. Do you accept that this is bound to happen, or do you make changes to your work in progress? For the most part, like, there's so much out there. There are going to be similar magic systems, there are going to be similar worlds, there are going to be similar personalities of characters. I don't think there's a problem with that at all, right? I would say if there were too many things that were similar, like, say you, like, Fourth Wing came out, and you had a book that was, like, very much like Fourth Wing. I mean, on one hand, that could kind of build on that popularity, but at that point, I would probably try and come up with, like, figure out which parts make my book unique, and then kind of try to plus those up, like do a round of revisions to really plus those up and lean into what's different about it. If there was a super popular book in your same subgenre that had the same character name, maybe I would change it, you know? But like, if it's not a super popular book or it's in a different subgenre, I wouldn't care, right? I mean, there's so much out there that has similarities, and I think as readers, we like that, right? Like, you'll see, anytime something gets popular, you'll see so many videos on, like, AuthorTube or BookTube or whatever, where they're like, oh, if you like this, then read this, right? We like those similarities, and certain genres are heavier into that than others, but, like, tropes are tropes for a reason. So, like, yeah, maybe you have those same character or personality tropes. There's so many that have those same ones, right? And there's so many that have, like, similar magic systems. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. Like, you don't have to be 100% original. Like, your take on it and the way you combine things and your voice is what makes it original. And honestly, even if, like, none of that stuff is original, even if it's, like, the most cookie-cutter thing ever, there are still people that are looking for that. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't think it's really a problem. Like, I don't think it's an issue. I just don't think it's an issue. If it's something that bothers you, like really, really bothers you, then, I mean, maybe you can tweak it. Like, if you need to do that to be happy, like if you would regret not changing it, then like do it. But I don't think you have to, personally. Next question. How do you get fast feedback on your writing via beta readers? I personally don't think beta readers are the best way for fast feedback, just because I've always found them to take, like, they normally take like a month or 2 because they're, like, fitting stuff into their schedules. I think that if you need quick feedback, you need to have a large pool of people to pull betas from. So, like, you need to cast your nets wider. And there are obviously risks to that, right? Like, I have a small writing group of 4? I think there's 4 others in there. And when I need a book beta read, even with giving them like a month or 2 of like time windows, not all of them are going to be able to fit it in, right? I might get like maybe 2 of them out of the 4 can do it. But I super trust these people. I trust their advice. I trust them. I know they're not going to like leak my book, or like I trust them in their advice and it's good, right? But if I had like a 2-week turnaround, right? I needed this book beta read in 2 weeks. I would try to line that up in advance and be like, this is when I'm going to need it. Can you commit to doing that? And like have them like almost like schedule their lives around it, you know? But also like say I had 50 people in my like potential ARC readers, street team, critique readers, I don't know, people. Then I could just be like, okay, I need this book read like in a month. I'm going to need 2 weeks turnaround for reading this book. That's what I need, right? And then have people be like, I can commit to that. I can commit to that. And like you'll get a small percentage of those people that can do it, but then you'll have that, right? And you'll have to figure out other ways of like vetting them. I know that Meredith, I feel like I've talked about her like 4 times in this video now. Meredith, I love you. But anyway, she did a call for beta readers, I think, for her book way back when. And the way she did it is she had like a form, and it was like, okay, like, do you read in my, because again, this was like a wide public net. And she has an audience, right? So a lot of people saw it, which makes that sort of thing easier. But I think there's other places on like Reddit and other places you can look for betas. But she was basically like, okay, like, this is my genre. What books do you like in this genre? What's the last book you read in this genre? What do you like about this genre? Making sure they were the right people for the book, right? And also, can you commit to this time frame? Can you whatever. Like, she was super formal and official about it. I think she did it really, really well. To try to find people that were actually the right type of people to give her feedback on her book, to make sure they had time to do it, to make sure they were legit, right? Like, I think she asked for like links for social and stuff so that she could vet it. One of the arcs that I applied to from a separate author, an already published author, they were basically like, okay, what's your Goodreads profile? It was the second book in a series. So they were like, what's your Goodreads profile? Can you link to your review of my first book or a review of a similar book to prove that you're someone that actually posts reviews? Can you like, I don't know, there's like stuff like that. So I would just, the tighter timeline you need, I think the wider you're going to need to send your net out, depending on how much like time in advance you know when you're going to need it. But yeah, that's kind of my thought on it. But yes, I think that's all of my questions. I'm very excited. I'm very much enjoying all of this, and I really enjoyed doing this. If people have more questions, or if there's anything they want me to do like a full video on, let me know down below. I really like doing Q&As. This is the first one I feel like I've actually gotten to do, because I never get enough questions, because like, I don't know, I feel like it's hard to get questions. So I'm always game for questions. My problem is probably that I answer them all in the comments anytime anyone has a question. It's probably my problem. But I'm excited. This was fun. If you have other questions, put them down below. If I get enough, I won't answer them in the comments, and I'll just do another one of these, and that would be epic. But yeah, thank you so much, especially anyone that submitted questions. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. But yeah, have a good rest of your week, and I will see you in the next one.